Wonderful night for athletics, and you'd expect perfect conditions for the jumpers as well. The breeze has just dropped. We saw Jared Hunter just go first in the men's long jump. We've got Mitchell Watt and Fabrice Lapierre coming up later on. This is Jeremy Andrews, a youngster from Western Australia who's been performing well this season. He won the Australian University Games title earlier in the year, and he's been impressing in both the long and triple, and he competed in the WA state titles against Mitchell Watt over the weekend. There are some other really impressive athletes in this field, including Kane Brigg, who was magnificent last night in the triple jump, jumping 16.97, a personal best. He was just 3 centimetres off 17 metres, and he could have been up into the really high standings of the greatest Australians of all time. In fact, he stands 5th all time now on the Australian list after last night's efforts. So we're waiting on Jeremy Andrews, a youngster from the Stirling Swans Club here in Western Australia, wearing the WA colours, really looking to hit the board with a lot of pace. He's got a lot of natural talent, and that is a good looking jump too. Up near the 8 metre mark, his personal best is just under 8 metres, 7.91. He seems pretty happy with that. In the long jump, the guys want to get as much pace as they can to hit the board and spring through, and that looks a pretty impressive effort by Jeremy Andrews. We've got Shaun Fletcher of Queensland coming up next. He's there in the red jersey, 28-year-old. Represented Australia at the World Uni Games in 2009. He's a Queenslander based in Newcastle. He jumped 7.32 in Melbourne, 7.54 in Sydney, did Fletcher, and 6 metres 90. So not quite as big as I expected from Andrews, but we'll see how he goes later on this evening. Fletcher just getting himself composed, waiting for the pit to be raked. Conditions perfect. Remembering, of course, last year on that Sunday of the Australian national titles in 2010 with a big tail breeze, Fabrice Lapierre, 8 metres 78. Even though it was wind assisted with a 3.4 metre per second tail breeze, it made him the 6th all time of any jumper in any condition anywhere in the world, behind some of the great names. But we're going to see Shaun Fletcher's first round attempt here. He's racing away, not quite as much speed as Andrews. He runs through the board, looks a reasonable jump. Coaching 101 in the long jump is really about those last 3 strides before they hit the board. And it's a little bit shorter, Pete, that second to last stride before they hit the board and then really launch through.
Alex, while I've got you there, I just want to ask you about one thing. We mentioned before that conditions are absolutely perfect tonight, with the WA weather being as warm as it is. We know that times have been really fast on the track. What about the field events? What have the stats told us on the field events that we've seen at this new complex?
There have been plenty of personal bests in the long jump and the triple jump, and also the pole vault. The pole vault runways just seem to be really suited, and Alex Parnoff loves training his squad here late in the afternoon. We saw a couple of weeks ago at an interclub meet, Alana Boyd jumping 4 metres 60, equalling 2nd all-time on the Australian list behind Kim Howe with Emma George, who's actually being honoured tonight, and I might get Mel's thoughts on that a little bit later on. But the results here in the field, particularly in the jumps, is significant. And also Kim Mickle in the throw. She loves throwing down breeze from the top end.
We've got Zane Leonard on the runway at the moment from Victoria. He's got a personal best of 7.52. How did that look?
Not a bad jump from here. He just lost a little bit of momentum. As I was saying before, the last stride is a little bit shorter for the long jumpers, and they look to run through the board rather than spring and just jump, because they lose the momentum moving forward. He didn't quite have the pace that you'd expect and that you'll see from the likes of Watt and Lapierre later. They will fly down this runway with the breeze at their back. And Watt, as we know, is a 10.37 runner on the track. So he has real raw speed, and that is the key to being a great long jumper. And as you know, Peter, having seen Carl Lewis compete at such a high level over so many years, it's just fabulous to watch. You'd wonder what someone like Usain Bolt would jump.
Well, he'd probably jump out of the stadium. He goes that fast. That was a foul, by the way, the previous one from Zane Leonard.
And let's not forget last year when Fabrice Lapierre at the National Championships jumped that amazing jump of 8.78, even though it was wind assisted. But anyone who was here and saw it, it actually looked like he was running up on one of those mini trampolines and jumping off it into the pit. So it obviously had some great performances on this long jump pit over, you know, the last year or so.
This is Robert Crowther of the AIS. He's got a jump of over 8 metres to his credit. Now, let's see. It's a red flag, unfortunately, so that's a foul, but he certainly got some elevation with that, Alex.
He looked impressive there, Crowther. He has won World Uni Games title in 2006 and 2007, and he was third at the Australian Championships last year behind Lapierre and Chris Nofke, so he has some talent, no doubt about that. And he looked like he had some spring in his step there, so we may see some impressive stuff from Robert Crowther a little bit later on, the 23-year-old. Here's Zane Brigg. I talked about him last night from the QAS. He was simply magnificent. 16.97 in the triple jump. He was up and about after he did that 16.97. He did a backflip, Peter, for the crowd. He was flying, and he thought for a moment that he jumped over 17 metres. And of course, he was a high jumper, turning into a triple jumper. He competed in the high jump at the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne just as an 18-year-old.
I know there's just so much talent, isn't there, in the jumps, and we see it a lot here in the long jump as such, and it's a very tough event to even qualify for the World Championships. You have to do 8 metres 20, which you would think would get you in a final at that world level, but we have so much depth, and I think it looks really exciting an event, Peter, for next year for the Beijing Olympics. I think that we could have 3 qualifiers and potentially have 3 medalists.
Incredibly so, and we're all looking forward to London even at this stage. Alex, down to you.
So here's Brigg. He jumped well in Melbourne, and that's a fair jump. He lost a little bit of momentum through the board, but we'll wait and see how he's gone. He was second in Melbourne, second in Sydney as well, but neither were over the 8 metre mark. He's still developing himself as a long jumper. It's a little bit different, Mel, as you know, for the triple jumpers. They try and slow their run up down a little bit to get that control and make sure that those 3 even phases are as even as possible, whereas the long jumpers just have raw pace. They hit the board and try and go as far as they can.
And as you also said with Mitchell Watt, you know, and here he is now lining up for his jump. He has got such amazing speed, and, you know, it'd be interesting to see how many 100-metre runners you could potentially just try out for this event. But, I mean, he could obviously not only compete at Olympics or World Championships in the long jump, but also take part in the men's 4x100 metres as well.
Particularly with a 10.37 to his name. So here's Mitchell Watt, first attempt of the night, 23-year-old. 8.38 in Sydney, he leads the point standing. 8.28 at the WA Championships last year. He's got an awkward running style, but he flies through the air. It's a fair jump. Good start by Watt. He's going to lay down a marker because he's going to lead Lapierre the whole night. So he jumps before Fabrice. Watt beating Fabrice Lapierre in the outdoor world titles of 2 years ago. Watt won the bronze medal on that occasion in Berlin. Lapierre turned the tables in Doha in 2010. Peter, that looked an impressive jump.
He generates, Alex, such speed. Mel, that's the one thing looking from high up here at the commentary box. That's an 8.21 for Mitchell Watt, so that's another fine leap. But when you look at the athletes that went before him, and no discredit to them, the amount of speed that Mitchell Watt generated on takeoff, it was like chalk and cheese.
It was, and it's that power he gets off that last step to land into the pit. And, I mean, looking at Fabrice Lapierre, his style is so different. And that's the thing in long jump, that you can have 2 jumpers that have completely different techniques.
The Australian indoor record holder, a windy 8.78 to win the Nationals last year. Only 5 other men have jumped further in any sort of conditions. So this was the head-to-head battle, Alex, that we were really looking forward to seeing tonight. And Fabrice Lapierre is on the runway.
Yeah, the Commonwealth Games champion. He's actually already got that A qualifier to his name, but it's more about beating his main rival Mitchell Watt. After Watt jumped 8.38 in Sydney, Lapierre sent a text straight away to him saying, "I'm out after you." He laid down Perth as the spot to chase him down. He loves this venue. Watch him fly here. He's all arms and legs. He raced away. He bites down on his chain, but he got his run up horribly wrong there. But Peter, just to mention that being 6th all time behind 5 names, this is the company he's keeping. Mike Powell, Carl Lewis, Bob Beeman, Ivan Pedroso and Robert Emenian. Now, Powell, two-time world champion. Lewis, four-time Olympic champion in the long jump. Beeman, an Olympic gold medalist, that famous jump in Mexico City. Pedroso, four-time world championship between 95 and 2001. He won in 2000, beating Tarima.
Now we're back on the long jump runway. And the competition going on there, Mitchell Watt, Fabrice, Lapierre, of course, are going to have it mainly between them. And it is Jeremy Andrews, the man who's just gone through with his jump. Looks as though it might be a legal one. So we'll wait for the measurement on that. But Mitchell Watt already setting the standard at 8.21. Fabrice Lapierre, hopefully nothing went wrong with him in his approach there to that first attempt.
Well, in actual fact, it's probably an area in Fabrice's jumping that he struggles with is his run-up. And in actual fact, I talked about earlier about the Nationals last year when he did that massive jump of 8.78. Even then, he was struggling with his run-up. So I sort of look at it and think, Peter, what could he potentially do if he hasn't, at this stage of his career, being able to pinpoint that run-up, then what he could potentially do in the future.
Shaun Fletcher of Queensland is going to be the next to go as we alternate here between the track and the field events. Fletcher, as we mentioned, a Queenslander, 7.71 is his personal best.
Yeah, Watt jumping 8.21 in round one, but he just jumped to foul Mitchell Watt. He's obviously getting amped up. He got the crowd going, did the Queenslander, and he just overstepped. He knew it as he hit the board. Lapierre, as he mentioned in round one, got halfway down the runway and thought, I'm not quite right here. He did a bit of that last year, though. He's that type of jumper. He's firing up here. Good elevation. Whether he got the distance or not, I'm not sure. Another foul.
Yeah. So he's having a bit of trouble there, Alex, just getting his run up right.
Yeah, I wonder, Peter, I mean, the little wind gauge, which is just off to the right, you just saw it in the screen there as he ran down towards the board, the little pink strip. It just gives you an indication of where the wind is going. It's been still and then it's drifting towards the pit and then away from the pit. And we saw Sally Pearson's 200. She ran into a 0.5 headwind, which is really rare for this time of night at this stadium. So it's hard to understand. It's hard to get a gauge of the conditions tonight. You'd think they were perfect, but the breeze might be just playing havoc slightly with the boys' run-up.
And that's understandable as well, because I know that one of the reasons why the women's 200 was on earlier tonight was because of the conditions, and hoping that there would be that slight tailwind, which they did have last night. But the point is, the weather's the weather, isn't it, Alex? And you've just got to deal with it the best way you can.
Yeah, you can usually predict the weather pretty well here in Perth. It's sunny, fine, and a slight sea breeze virtually every day of the year. But it's hard to fathom this breeze tonight. It's a funny one, and now it seems to be picking up for Jared Hunter's third attempt in the long jump here. So it's really quite hard to understand. The reason why they schedule the sprint races early, Mel, as you would know, is to try and keep the heat in the track and the heat from the sun that's just set over Raybould Hill to make sure conditions are perfect for the sprinters to fire. They love the heat of the track, really gets their muscles going. Here's Hunter flying down the runway. A little bit flat on the board. Is that a foul? No, legal jump, but looked well short. But Mel, you obviously like running the hot conditions in your career?
Yeah, look, it does make a massive difference for the sprinters. There you can see there, Hunter. Look at that great knee lift that he got, but just couldn't propel off that board.
Yeah, we just saw Robert Crowther of the AIS, the 23-year-old, jump in the third round. A wonderful jump as well, 7.87. So that's his season's best for the World University Games champion from 2007 and 2006. And he was third last year at the Australian titles. We mentioned that earlier, behind Chris Nofke, who finished second to Fabrice Lapierre. So a third round jump of 7.87. I reckon that might put him in second spot in this competition at the moment. Behind Mitchell Watt, who's already jumped a World A qualifier, 8.21. That was in round one. Here's Brigg, who performed so wonderfully well in the triple jump last night. Long jump a little bit more foreign to him, and this may well be a foul. He bailed out of it in the air. Well, it was a legal jump, so unusual from Brigg. Unusual to see that, Mel.
It is unusual, but he just thought, well, maybe it's just not far enough and I don't want to register it. I mean, there's a lot of tactics and thought processes behind these athletes in the long jump. wanting to achieve that distance.
They're very much individual athletes, the long jumpers, aren't they? Some have described them over the years as being a bit kooky.
I'm not sure if they're going to be happy about that.
Well,
Mitchell Watt, of course, isn't very kooky at all. He's sensational.
No, I'm
and
not
on
saying
fire.
I'm not saying the current ones. I'm just saying some of the ones from previous days. They have been known to be a little individual, Alex, haven't they, over
like
the years?
Jai Charima and smoking cigarettes and eating pizza. That sort of kooky. Jumping Jai.
Jumping Jai. Didn't he capture the nation's imagination? Do you reckon his national record is safe, guys, or can we see something really special tonight from the likes of Watt or Lapierre?
Well, he's in great form, Mitchell Watt. We know that. And he's already opened up with an 8.21. Let's have a look at it. Great speed.
Not sure if that was a foul. Yes, it is a foul. Slightly over the board, not by much.
And as we look at it in replay, Alex, could you get a sense of how long it was? We're watching from a fairly acute angle here.
Yeah, that was as longer jump of the night. That was well beyond the 8 metre mark, and it could have been around about 8.25 would be the guesstimate for Mitchell Watt. It was written in the press here in the West during the week that after his 8.38 in Sydney, the distance he only had to travel to get Tarima's record was about 12 centimetres, or it was exactly 12 centimetres, the length of a pen. So it's that finer margins. You don't really think about it in those terms when you read the numbers and you see the results, but when you get out on the track in the sand, it's that close. It's that much margin for error, and particularly when they hit the board. I mean, 1 millimetre can make the difference from a legal to a foul jump, and you'd hate to think you jump an enormous figure and you'd only be a millimetre over.
And it doesn't sound much when you say that it's the length of a pen, but these things, track and field events, are decided by millimetres and fractions of millimetres and fractions of seconds. Remember when Gail Divas won in Barcelona?
Yeah.
And I think there were about 5 went across the line, separated by about 0.03 of a second in that race.
And even when you think of that, that can be like Olympic gold medalist to Olympic bronze medalist, you know. It's just incredible. And you do think as an athlete, why didn't I just lean that little bit forward, or, you know, that could have made that big difference. But here we've got Fabrice Lapierre once again. As you can see, one of the things he loves to do is put his necklace in his mouth as part of his game plan as such, and again he's struggling with his run-up.
He's having a horror night with his run-up. No real reason there. I mean, the breeze has completely died down here, so I'm not quite sure. I guess this is his first real outing of the season. He did a little bit of this last year, as I mentioned earlier, at the national titles. He just bailed out of a few jumps. He was playing a few mind games, as you mentioned, Mel, with Chris Noffke, and then out of nowhere, when he really needed to deliver, he delivered big, that 8 metres 78. So he knows he can jump the big jumps when he needs to, so I guess he's just happy to waste a couple here to get a feel for the runner.
Well, those two have certainly developed a bit of a rivalry as we go back onto the runway for the long jump. Alex Malcolm.
Shaun Fletcher on the runway there, a legal jump. He doesn't look happy with it though. We just saw Jeremy Andrews before, 6.67 in round 4. Fabrice Lapierre opened up round 4 as they reversed the order a little bit. So Lapierre jumped the foul. He did actually jump this time, but this is Fletcher, the 28-year-old from Queensland, personal best of 7.71, and he's based in Newcastle. He didn't look happy with that jump at all. 7.19, not a bad effort, but he's still well behind the likes of Watt and Crowther. Watt 8.21 in round 1, Peter, and Crowther 7.87 in round 2, and we've got Brigg coming up next.
So, Alex, am I right in saying Fabrice Lapierre hasn't registered a legal jump yet?
In 4 rounds, no.
Okay, well, that's something that he's going to need to rectify quickly. It's going to need to be a big one too, and his chances of actually getting 8.21 after everything he's been through, you'd think it'd be fairly slim.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that, you know, it's important to have those competitions week in and week out, and this is his first outdoor competition, so he's probably struggling because of that.
Alex, all yours.
Kane Brigg really got the crowd going as he did last night. That's a foul. He'd be a little bit frustrated. Tough, Mel, for the triple jumpers to make the adjustment to long jump sometimes. The run-up slightly different. The triple jumpers need to be a little bit more controlled as they want their 3 phases to be pretty equal across the 17 or 18 metres if they're getting up to that point. So an 18-metre jump, you'd want the hop, skip and jump all 6 metres each. But for the long jumpers, they've just got to hit the board at speed and really run off the board and get as far out as possible.
Yeah, it's good for Kane Brigg. He does do a great job in doing that transition, and I suppose it gives him great opportunities to compete week in and week out. Just having one event, being a sprinter myself and did a couple, it must be sometimes a bit challenging just having one event. So for him, he gets the opportunity to compete in both.
So what's the sprinter, a bit of a diversion for a sprinter is when you go and do something stupid and run 400 metres, I suppose.
That is the crazy stuff, yes, when you go to run a 400 metres.
Well, you and I sat at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in Delhi and saw the pain on the face of Sally Pearson after she ran in the 4x4, and all I could think of is, why would you want to do that to yourself?
To help a country, to help them win a medal at the Commonwealth Games.
Alex?
Robert Crowther coming off a 787 around 3. And again, he landed on the board legally, but didn't go through with the jump. It's unusual to see a few of the boys jumping fouls and then a few of the boys jumping legally and pulling out in the air. So they're obviously having some issues tonight. There's really no excuses. The breeze has completely died down, Peter. You cannot argue with these conditions. Maybe perhaps the boys would like a little bit more of a tailwind behind them, but it's lovely and warm down here. This, as we mentioned earlier, is one of the fastest tracks in Australia, recently laid only as far back as May 2009, so it's a wonderful venue to compete at, to jump at and to sprint at. But the guys are really having a tough time of it tonight.
Now, I want to talk to you about something else as we wait for Mitchell Watt, who's on the runway now. You're a local. I was reading in the paper this morning, I think there hasn't been rain in WA, any sort of significant rain at all, for, is it 59 days or something like that in Perth?
Something like that. It would feel like longer. I quote 4 months to anybody who asks me from the eastern states. It's extraordinary. Every day is pretty much like today, and for those tuning in, you wouldn't have seen, but there's not a cloud in the sky. There's a slight sea breeze. It's lovely and warm, over 30 degrees. It has been extraordinary weather. We are in a severe drought, really, but it's fantastic for the athletes coming from the wet in Sydney and the cold in Melbourne, and Mitchell Watt's been loving it so far. 8:28 at the state titles last Saturday. He came over early to get that preparation, and he's got that advantage over Lapierre, and he's jumped 8:21 tonight. Let's see how he goes here. We know he's got the speed at 10:37 over the 100. That looked pretty good.
It'll be legal, I think.
Definitely
legal. He was back on the board.
He was worried about that last jump, Peter. We saw, remember, it was a big jump, but he fouled from memory in round 3. So he is really firing up and laying down a marker. Lapierre's got a long way to come back. That was over 8 metres. It doesn't look like it's beyond 8:20, but we shall wait and see. For the bronze medalist from Berlin in 2009. Of course, he missed most of last year, April through November, with that torn abductor muscle. It took him a long time to get back. 8:06, Peter, in round 4 for Mitchell Watt. So he's jumped 8:21 and 8:06. The only man to have jumped over 8 metres in this competition so far.
And Mel, just looking at the replay there's a bit of improvement there because he was back on the board there.
Yes, he was. So, I mean, this is the thing I admire about these jumpers, because it's so precise. It can just make such a difference. And that must be, as we've seen with Lapierre, we're seeing there now, as I said earlier, that's one of his issues that he needs to perfect. And once a jumper, a long jumper, can perfect that, it's going to make a massive difference.
And he's just trying to psych himself up here too. Confidence is an amazing thing in sport as well, and everything that he's been through, he might just be a little bit rattled at the moment, getting to round 5, not having a legal jump in there, but he is the sort of athlete who could just bring one out of the box.
Well, he's coming from the cold, really, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, most of the athletes down there who are competing in the long jump tonight have been doing this for the last, 2.5 months. So, it is difficult, but you never underestimate a champion.
Let's get down to Alex. He's down there.
Well, first real competition since the Delhi Commonwealth Games, where he was the champion. That is a big lead, but he just got too much height. We wait and see.
The official taking a long time.
It is
fair.
legal. Yeah. He just made sure, I think, with that second last stride that he hit the board right, and in the end he just sprung straight up rather than out, Mel, and lost a bit of momentum. This is under 8 metres by the looks of things from that replay, given where Watt landed with his 8:06. So at least he's registered a number, guys.
Yeah, I think he'd be just happy to be on the board at this stage after everything that's gone on before that.
7 metres 48 for Lapierre. So at the moment, I think he is third in the competition behind Watt and Crowther. Watt's jumped 8.21 in round 1. That's a World A qualifier. He's third in 2 weeks, and 8.06 in round 4. And then Crowther jumped 7.87, the AIS 23-year-old, who's a very talented athlete. And so Lapierre's registered 7.48. So the long jump competition hasn't really heated up as we expected, Peter.
Zane Leonard on the runway now. He got pretty close to the plasticine. The official goes out and has a look. He had the flags in position to go up, both the white and the red, and it's the red, unfortunately, for Zane. So he's just put his toe on the plasticine there. And as you said, Mel, it can be very much a matter of millimetres on the runway, but it's been Mitchell Watt so far. Fabrice Lapierre is at least on the board. We turn our attention just before the men's 400 hurdles, which is coming up very shortly, to Robbie Crowther of the AIS. Alex, all yours.
He's got a PB of 8.02, so he's around the mark. Hits the board hard and really ran through it. That looked a good jump and another foul.
Yeah.
Another foul.
So disappointing.
It is. And, you know, it's great to see Robbie Crowther back, because he was one of our, juniors' talents, very, very talented jumper, and have had, injury issues over the last couple of years. But he's another one that could really come through to be very successful at international level.
And he hit the board with speed that time, so that could have been a pretty handy jump. But again, only a matter of millimetres, and we've spoken about that. But this is the man that really everyone's attention has been drawn towards tonight. He set the standard early with an 8.21, Mitchell Watt. Absolutely fabulous in Sydney last week with an 8.38. And he is going to be a man who's going to strut his stuff at the very top level, hopefully over the next 18 months or so. And Alex is watching him from close quarters.
You'd expect him to be right at the medals come Daegu in September. The crowd really like that one. That's the biggest roar of the night. It's a legal jump. So let's see what he registered. He's always got 2 jumps over 8 metres, 8.21 in round 1, which was simply superb. 8.06 in round 4. And he was pretty good on the board there, Peter, and that was up near his 8.06 again. So I reckon this might be around 8.06, 8.10. He's been pretty consistent tonight with his performances. Yeah,
we just got a really good shot from the low-angle camera of the elevation that Mitchell Watt is able to establish. Now, on the long jump runway is Jeremy Andrews of WA. If you are just joining us, Mitchell Watt is the man who's certainly made the running. Fabrice Lapierre got up into the mid-7s with his last jump that we saw. That was in the 5th round, and that was the first time he actually registered a jump. Having all sorts of difficulties with his approaches, but Mitchell Watt with 8.21 leads the competition. Jeremy Andrews on the way down. Well, that'll be legal. He was back on the board. Or so it seemed. The official taking a while to put the white flag up. Sometimes you second guess yourself when he does that.
I think I've done that a couple of times today. And you could hear the crowd cheering out for Jeremy Andrews, who's obviously from Western Australia and having this great opportunity to compete in front of his family tonight as well.
4 fouls out of 5 so far. 7.48 is the only number he has posted, Peter. This is his last jump. He needs something big to throw Watt off the top of the leaderboard. It looked big in the air, but unfortunately he checks with the officials and it is a foul, I do believe. So a foul, last jump for Lapierre. Watt passed, so he wins with 8.21. Tremendous performance by Mitch Watt.
Yeah, great performance.
Mitchell, wonderful performance, 8.21 first jump. You must be so pleased with that.
Oh, yes, pretty pleased. That's my 3rd jump over 8.20 in the past 2 weeks. So a few weeks ago I would have been very happy, but at the moment, the way I'm jumping, I don't think I'll be too excited unless I go over 8.50. So, but yeah, it's another 8 qualifier in the bag, and I won by a fair bit, so pretty happy.
You missed so much of last season with that abductus tear. How's that going, and how are you feeling going into this season?
It's going really well. I missed a lot of last year. Took a bit longer recovery than I thought I would need, but I think it's paying off this year. We took things slowly last year, and I haven't felt it since about November last year, so hopefully that's all behind me now.
What's the next move for you from here?
We've got nationals in April, in a couple of weeks, and then head over to Shanghai in the middle of May, and then off to Europe to prepare for World Champs. So, yeah, won't be home much in the next few months, but really looking forward to it.
How many Diamond League meetings are you anticipating in competing in?
Probably maybe about 5 or 6. I'm going to jump once a week max, just to take care of the groin. Last time I went to Europe, I was doing sort of 2 and 3 comps a week, which I think sort of contributed to my injury. So we're just going to take it a bit easy this year, make sure everything is feeling good before we go to each comp.
And last one before you go, what do you think of Perth?
Oh, Perth's awesome. So I'm already looking forward to coming back here next year.
Fantastic, Mitch. Well done.